Well, hey everybody, I'm in the study today. I want to have a little conversation with you, very one way, about knife fighting and how knife fighting correlates with knife design, as it should. If a knife is made for a purpose, then its design should further that purpose. And, a lot of times I think maybe people don't think so much about knife design, why it looks the way it looks, but really, it looks the way it looks because it's playing a function. So let's just kind of talk about what design features are tailored for knife fighting type things. Now, in any knife fighting, there's really only 4 actions you can be doing. You can mix them up and do them with different power, but there's really only 4 movements that work with knife fighting. So tell me if you agree, because this is just my theory, but I think I'm right. You've got thrusting, stabbing motions, right? They're linear, they're straight, and they primarily utilize the tip of the knife, right? We're talking about the anatomy of the knife, what furthers the purpose of knife fighting. These attacks, these thrusts, these linear motions, they use a tip. Then you got something I'm calling slashing. You might call it something different, but that's an arcing motion like this. Notice this motion, the movement's coming from the shoulder and the elbow. The wrist is more or less staying fixed with a hammer grip, okay? So this is what I call a slash, and you can do them all different sorts of angles, right? You can cut your angles like this, but essentially that's what that is. This motion is pretty much gonna start with the heel, ideally, and move all the way up the blade. And you're already starting to think, oh man, what about that bump there? That would cause some damage. Exactly, that's where the recurve is kind of really helpful when it comes to a slash. So we got thrust, we're using the tip, slash, like this, kind of a catching motion. And I'll just say, if an arc is coming at you, it's great to intercept an arc with an arc. So this is a good counter move. It's something like this, something like that. Cut, check, and then move in. So getting ahead of ourselves, that's using the entire length of the blade, ideally starting here towards the heel. Then we got something that I'm calling the cut, and that is a little bit of mixture of both. You're extending your arm, your shoulder, and then the wrist comes in. You come down like this. So it could look like this. Slow motion like that, that. That's the cut. And the cut is going to be using the tip and that last few inches. So that's what's going to be connecting with your target. Here's your Mrs. Meyer's clean day that you're attacking, and you go and extend, and your tip's going to be hitting first, or at least if it's designed well, your tip will be hitting first. Some knives with a very, very high point, when you do that, kind of the belly connects. The belly is more surface area than the tip, and therefore the force is displaced, and you're not going to get as deep penetrating cuts through leather and heavy material like this shirt. That's why I like a low tip for that very purpose right there. And then last but not least, you've got the chop. The chop is a cut, but it's a boom, a powerful cut. It's really embarrassing when you see people chopping who don't know how to, because they'll like swing through like this, and you realize they're getting maybe 20% of power. A chop, obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious. It is to anyone who chops. If you use a machete, you know just what I'm talking about. A chop, you swing that wrist at the end and it sinks in, all your energy goes in. There should be no follow through. It's boom, and you're stopping in whatever you've cut because all your power has gone into it. So again, review, we've got thrust, we've got a slash, we've got a cut, and we've got a chop. And I think those are really the only motions that you can do with a knife. Now, different aspects of the knife lend themselves to those different attacks, right? We're talking about how a combat knife is designed. So what's going to help with that thrust? It's the tip. You want a centered tip, so all that force is going through the middle. You'll do even better if you've got a sharpened spine, because that's even less resistance as it's penetrating through whatever it's penetrating. This is a false edge because I use this knife for utility. I don't want it sharp back here to break my baton or to cut my finger. But the best anatomy of a knife you can have for a thrust would be a double edge, probably a double edge Bowie, maybe a double edge spear point. And when we're talking about our slashes now, yeah, you want a wide blade for a slash because the wider your blade, generally the keener and deeper you're going to cut. Also, that angle right there is great for the slash because again, if you're starting here and you're pulling through, you can already see what's going to happen when that hump comes into contact with what you're cutting through. It's going to cut deeply. This is also a great advantage if you don't have room to slash. If you're all bound up and all you can do is just place that knife on something and pull through, say a leg behind you, you just gotta draw, put it on, pull through, and then work to the rest of your engagement. That's what that hump is good for. So centered point, good for thrust. Kind of a curve and a wide blade, good for slash. How about our cut? Well, a low point is good for the cut because again, you want, if you're cutting your Wild Edibles guide, you want your point to engage with the cut. I've done this time and time again with canvas, with leather. When you're doing that cut, you're not going to get through that canvas if the belly of the knife is hitting first. You want a low and acute point so that that point hits first. That's what's going to get you through the material. I don't know if I've got an example here of a knife with a high point. I really enjoy lower pointed knives. This one's got kind of a high point. If I slash with this and I hit with that belly, it's not going to go through stuff. When you slash, you want to be hitting right there by the tip. I said slash, I meant cut. All right, pardon my terminology. Okay, so point, thrust, hole, edge, wide, curve, slash. Point again, lower point preferable for the cut. And then how about that chop? Well, wider up here is good for the chopping. That curve is also good for the chopping. Why? Because the more weight you have, the further from your pivot point, the more power you're going to get. The fastest moving point of this knife is the tip because when I do like this, this covers that much space and that much time. This covers this much space and that much time. That's moving a lot faster. It's got way more power. You make that wide, you make that heavy. Now you've got a heavy thing moving really fast, and that's what chops stuff like crazy. So get some weight out there towards the end of the knife. That's what's gonna help with your chopping. So can you combine all this stuff together to get a really good combat knife? Yes, you can. And well, that's why I designed the accipiter. It's based after all those things. The design lends itself to thrusting, centered point, slashing, wide and curved, cutting, low point, and chopping because you've got that wide recurve there. There you go, little idea on how blade design interacts with the actual movements used in combatives and why those features are all combined here with the accipiter. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. I'd love to see your comments underneath, see if you agree with these philosophies or if you've read them somewhere else, somewhere before. I thought up these things, but if they're correct, someone else is going to have also thought up these things. So I appreciate all that. And if you want, I mean, these are all knives I forged here. That's what Mars Fire Forge is. These are all custom knives I happen to own because I make knives, but I also really like knives. So sometimes I don't get rid of all of them. So send me a text or whatever, an inbox if you want something like this made. I've also got a Instagram website at Mars Fire Forge. Hopefully the link will be in the description, but I can make no guarantees about that. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys have a good morning, night, or day.